Hi, I'm Benjamin Hunting with Auto by Tel, and I'm here today at Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, with the 2016 Cadillac ATS-V. This is the latest entry in Cadillac's V series of performance cars. It includes sedans and coupes. This particular model is a sedan, but you can get a two-door if you're looking for it too. What sets this apart from the standard ATS? It's a huge list of performance gear nestled underneath this more aggressive-looking version of Cadillac's entry-level sedan and two-door. For starters, there's a 3.6-liter twin-turbo engine under the hood that generates 464 horsepower and 445 pound-feet of torque. Backing that is either a 6-speed manual transmission or GM's new 8-speed automatic, which the company claims can shift just as quickly, if not quicker, than most dual-clutch automatic systems, despite it being fitted with a traditional torque converter design. Regardless of how you feel about automatic transmissions, it's hard to argue with the results. This car will do 60 miles an hour in 3.9 seconds. That's using a launch control system that's linked into the performance traction management system that comes standard with this car, 5 separate levels of track-oriented traction management and stability control, and it has a top speed of 189 miles per hour. One thing that you'll notice about the ATS-V compared to the regular ATS is the menacing snarl that it has up front, and that's not all just attitude. This is a significant amount of engineering that also informs the shape of the front end of this car. You'll notice that, in particular, the front end is more open than you would see on the standard ATS, and that's because they're trying to keep this engine and the twin-turbo system underneath that hood as cool as possible. All-day heat like what we have here in Texas means that you have to protect the equipment if you want to be able to be racing at the same speed at the end of the day as you were at the beginning of the day. And this car has been working hard all morning, and we haven't had any drop-off in performance. That's because here, and on the other side where you would normally have fog lights, you have separate cooling systems and a larger radiator than what you would have in the ATS. They actually move the brackets for the standard radiator in order to fit in extra cooling fins. Something else, there's 3 charge coolers for the turbo system that make sure that the charge that comes into the engine is as cool as possible to pack as much oxygen, as dense oxygen as they can into the engine to make that 464 horsepower. There's even a combination rear differential and transmission cooling system underneath this segment that runs the lines all the way to the back of the car using the transmission as a pump to keep things flowing. Of course, keeping the car cool isn't the only thing that the engineers have done in terms of aerodynamics with the ATS-V. When you have a vehicle that's doing 189 miles per hour, you want to have as much downforce as possible, and you want to keep the car stable. A big part of that are features like this duck-billed spoiler. There's a splitter that goes underneath the car. There's gurney wings at the front of the car, and even notice the hood extractor. It's not just to extract heat, although that's a secondary function. It actually prevents air from building up under the hood and lifting at speed. Cadillac claims that even though this car is 500 pounds lighter than the CTS-V, the previous generation of the car, at a track speed, it's producing 150 pounds of additional front-end downforce. Of course, the big question with any performance sedan or coupe like this ATS-V is how does it drive? On the street, the car feels pretty much like an everyday car, as long as you keep it in touring mode. If you move to sport mode or to track mode, the suspension gets noticeably stiffer, the steering is heavier, and if you're in an automatic car, you notice the shifts come much quicker and gears are held longer. Interior details, you get these Recaro seats, which have inflatable bolsters on the bottom and on the sides. But other than that, there's really not a lot that separates it from the standard ATS. The quality of the leather seems pretty much the same. You have an insert in the seats that's not Alcantara, it's actually almost a velour type material designed to keep you in position. It does a fairly good job. And none of the car they drove today have a sunroof, which is my personal preference for a track car because that's the worst possible place to add weight. On the track, the car feels very composed. It has an extremely predictable chassis, and if you're using the performance traction management system, which you probably should be, I set it to around 3 out of the 5 settings. That means I get a little bit of intervention for the stability control system when things get out of shape, but it's done progressively. It's not like a giant hand grabs the rear of this rear-wheel drive car and places you back on the line. What happens is it gives you a few seconds to sort things out if you're sideways to decide whether you want to keep the drift going or whether you really are in trouble. I really appreciate that from a performance car, and I found the chassis in a track setting to be more lively and a little less disconnected than you would find in some other chassis from certain other, perhaps German sports sedan manufacturers. I really like the 2016 Cadillac ATS-V. Sure, it doesn't have the same V8 rumble that we've come to expect from the Cadillac's V series. What it does have is a phenomenally well-engineered chassis, a great drivetrain, and the ability to take on its European competitors on even footing. A note about pricing, the ATS-V starts at $61,000, and it's very, very easy to push that number up to the $80,000 mark just by adding a few options. The car that we're looking at here is actually a $74,000 car. It has things like a navigation and a few other safety systems have been added to it. So if you really, really want a full-load ATS-V, you're looking at a significant dollar outlay. It's interesting that Cadillac has chosen this path, given that in the minds of many, they're still a challenger brand trying to pick up on customers from BMW, Audi, and Mercedes-Benz who maybe aren't yet convinced that Cadillac offers the same standard of quality. I understand the pricing strategy of the Cadillac ATS-V because, in my mind, this car is the equal of similarly slicker vehicles. Whether the customers will feel the same way about Cadillac is something we're going to have to discover over the course of the next year.